welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name is Erin and this is an episode of #FridaySews. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to be talking about what I did over the last week, what my sewing plans are for next week, and a little bit about life. This hashtag was started by Jen from Today in Jen's Sewing Room, so thank you, Jen, so much for creating this hashtag, which allows the sewing community to come together every week and catch up with each other on what we're doing with both content creators and with the awesome people that comment and interact on our videos. So thank you so much, Jen. The first sewing related thing to talk about is that I did go to Joann's last weekend. In last week's Friday Sews video, I talked about my best friend wants to get into sewing. She's going to start sewing, and I am putting together a box for her of just, I don't want to call it like a starter kit, but just things that would be nice to have so that she doesn't have to go out and buy all of these things to, do one simple project. I got some great suggestions in the comments of things to get her. Some of the most common ones were a tape measure. That was probably the most common one. Some people talked about different marking tools they use. And then, the other really common one was a suggestion for like a kit of a simple thing that she could sew. So I went to Joann's to pick up some more notions and things for her. I think I'm gonna do a separate video on what I end up putting in that box. I looked at some of the beginner kits that they sell. Usually it's like Singer or something like that, has a bunch of little types of, or a bunch of different colors of thread and a pair of scissors and a pin cushion, and it's like all packaged together. I thought about grabbing one of those, but some of the parts in there just seem really cheap, and I'm not getting her the highest end, nicest things, but I don't want to just give her something that's going to fall apart or be really frustrating to use. So I'm kind of trying to, curate it for her. So anyway, that I think I'm going to do a separate video on what I end up putting in that box. While I was at Joann's, it was the Simplicity sale. I picked up two patterns. I got Simplicity 9740, this Mimi G pattern. I was inspired by Laura from Sewing Up Style. She recently made this dress and it looks awesome on her. She made it out of, I forget what it was, a scuba knit or something. I don't remember. But it was this really cool graphic fabric, and it just looked so great. And I will say I had seen this before browsing and wasn't super inspired by it, probably because my upper arms are a bit of a problem area for me, and I don't like having them out a ton. With this heat, I kind of have to a little more, but I don't generally like anything that highlights the upper arm like that. But I didn't really feel like it did on her at all. So anyway, I was inspired to get this one. It is made for stretch knits only, such as double knit interlock jersey or a lightweight ponte. That is the first one I got, and then the second one I got is a little girl's one, or a little child's one, Simplicity 9558. Just some simple little rompers. Well, one's a dress. You can do, it either has long legs, short legs, or it's a dress. And it's all for wovens, so yeah. I got that to make one day for little Miss Brady. That's all I picked up, plus the couple of notions for my friend. In terms of actual sewing, last week I also talked about these joggers I was making my husband, Simplicity 9691. I've been talking about joggers for him for months at this point, it feels like. I finally have started making them. I was using just some gray sweatshirting that I had on hand from using as a quilt back a long time ago, and I did not pay attention. If you remember from last week, or if you weren't here last week, I didn't pay attention close enough to the pick a knit rule and how much stretch I needed, and it did not have enough stretch. Once I got to putting the waistband on, there wasn't enough stretch to properly ease it in and make it all line up. It was not gonna happen. So I had a couple ideas that I talked about. The most common suggestion in the comments, or the most agreed upon suggestion, was to find a stretchier fabric, like a rib knit or something, to use for the cuffs and the waistband, because then it wouldn't really look weird to have them be a different fabric. I don't think at all. I think it would look fine. And these are really just for him to wear around the house anyway. But I looked when I was at Joann's, and I didn't really, nothing nothing looked great to me. I don't know. Maybe I was just lacking inspiration or something. They're just like a heathered light gray sweatshirting. So honestly, almost anything would go with them, but nothing struck my fancy. But one suggestion from Cindy was to cut it on the bias. So I came home from Joann's and I was like, well, I'll try that first. If not, I'll branch out. I'll go to Hobby Lobby and see if I can find something there. Cut it on the bias and it worked. So you can see it's on the bias. It gave me just enough stretch. It didn't work for the cuffs. I tried cutting it on the bias and it wasn't quite enough stretch for some reason to work on the cuffs. So I cut bigger pieces on the bias. I have had a ton of this. I still have a good amount, but thankfully I was able to cut multiple big pieces of it. So I ended up adding 2 inches to the cuff piece. And then that made it so I could, between that and being on the bias, I could put it in really easily. I will include some footage of Adam wearing them. He is very happy. Some things to keep in mind for me when I make them out of the official good fabrics. These were more of a wearable toile for him. I need to baste in the waistband first. I actually am going to try something different next time. But the waistband just got really bulky. Like when he wears them, there's like a little ledge that sticks out. And it's just because between the side seams, so you have the 2 layers of the waistband, the 2 layers of the pocket here in front, and the layer from the actual leg part of the pants, it's just really bulky. And he said it's not uncomfortable bulky, but I just think, I mean, I'm being really critical of it, but it just looks bulky to me. So I have already cut the next pair, and I was talking to my mom about it and how bulky it is. She suggested doing something I've done on pants for Brady before, but instead of having a separate waistband piece, she suggested I extend the top piece of the legs up. So in this case, it was about 6 inches is what the waistband piece, pattern piece is. It's about 6 inches tall. So extend it up 6 inches and then fold it down. And then you just take away some of the layers of, why am I having so much difficulty? Some of the layers of bulk that got put in there. And you could still do your channels and stuff. The only thing that'll be interesting is making the opening to insert the elastic. The cording goes in through buttonholes in the front, but making that to insert the elastic, I guess I'll have to cut holes and then sew them shut. Apparently I need to think through that a little more. I have enough of the fabric that I can cut a waistband piece if I need to, but I am really just trying to cut down on the bulk because it is another, I think it was like, I don't remember what it was, but it's about the same thickness as this, to where with 1 layer, you're like, oh, that's not terribly thick, but then you have 5 layers and it's massive. So that is my plan for the next pair, is to try that out. The other thing, this is specific to putting the waistband onto the pants, is like, I should have basted it in first because, and I could have taken it out and redone it, but he's not wearing these in public. He doesn't wear gray sweatpants in public. He doesn't even really wear sweats in public. They're really just for around the house. So I wasn't super worried about it. Plus, like, my frustration level with this waistband I'd already maxed out on it. So I was just like, we're gonna make this work. It's gonna happen. It's fine, whatever. Anyway, it ended up being a little bit off here. Doesn't line up. I started sewing more towards this side. Not quite that. It doesn't bother me as much. This one is like very off. What really bothers me is the buttonholes for the cording are so bad. They're so off. Like, it's not even close. But it is what it is. It's a note for next time to be more precise when I'm like marking and doing these things. If I do it again where I put the waistband onto it, and just in general making anything like this, if it's gonna have a focal feature in the front that I have already put into the fabric. I need to baste it in first, which I know that I should have done it, but we're here. It does have pockets. They're good sized pockets too. Like pretty good sized pockets. You can probably fit like an iPhone 17 Max Plus in there whenever they come out. So yeah, very pleased with these, except for kind of the issues on top. Also, he wears a shirt that goes over it. He never really like tucks his shirt into it, so you don't see the waistband. Still annoying. I should have been more precise, but he likes them. They are cozy. I'm happy that I got it done, and I am glad I have notes of what to do better next time. Back onto the topic of the box for my friend. People suggested a simple project and give her like all of the pieces for it. So I kind of did a hybrid of things. I found a tutorial online and for a zippered pouch, context, for a zippered pouch. So I used like the template from that, even though it's not really necessary. And then Izzy from Dizzy Quilts and Sews has a good zippered pouch tutorial that seems to have a little more flair than this one. But the concepts are very similar. So I printed out the instructions from the website, made notes on that as I did it. And I'm also going to give her the information to look up Izzy's video. But like I said, I'll go more into that when I make a video dedicated to the box. Anyway, I made this little practice pouch because I wanted to go through it and give her suggestions and kind of how I did things. It is lined, has a box bottom, so it can stand up. This just has medium weight fusible interfacing in it. It could be a lot stiffer and have more structure. Obviously, if you use like a fusible fleece or something like that. But yeah, this was really easy. I think I made it in an hour and a half to include like cutting everything out, stopping to write notes for her and stuff like that. I think once you do a couple, you could make them really quickly. They'd be great gifts. I've seen, people have been talking more about holiday gifts now that we're kind of getting into the autumn season, allegedly. The temperatures don't agree, but allegedly. I think this would be a really great little holiday gift if you could make, a couple sizes that I'll coordinate. You could use like the lining fabric as the exterior for another one, kind of make them all coordinate in a fun way. That would be super fun, easy gift. And yeah, it doesn't take much fabric at all, just zippers. Great little project, very, very easy. And then I got a lot of sewing done this week. I started working on the York top, which is a free pattern from, I don't know, I'll link it below. I really don't remember. But it's just kind of like a classic top, classic silhouette. I started working on this because I've been wanting to make it for a while. I printed out the pages for it eons ago. I don't know how I feel about it. I think it's going to be a little too big. The darts are definitely, I think, a little too long. I need to see if I can adjust those. But I keep looking at the finished garment measurements, but in my mind, I think I'm giving myself more ease than I actually need. I'm like, oh, I don't even know how many inches this has of ease, but like, oh yeah, 2 inches of ease sounds great. But like, either the measurements are inaccurate or I don't know. But I think it's gonna be too big. Anyway, but I'm working on this. It also, where the pattern repeats, you get kind of these stripes, and I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. I think it's one of those things that when it gets done, there's potential I will really like it. There's also potential I'll hate it, but that's always a risk. So I am doing this. It's going pretty easily. I am doing French seams, so that's taking an extra minute, but yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I've been doing a lot of batch cutting. I talked about this last week too, because we're going to move and I wanted a bunch of projects that I could just sew and not have to cut and everything. But every time I cut one, I'm like, oh, I want to sew that. I want to sew that. I want to sew that. So finally I cut this and I was like, this is a pretty simple top. It's something I can work on instead of just cutting constantly. which I'm actually kind of enjoying. But so I started to do this. The back seam is real thick because I did the math backwards. I did a 1/4 inch seam and then a 3/8 inch seam. But anyway, yeah, that's all I had to say about that. And I started sewing down the binding on a little like baby quilt that I sewed back in June. I think I did 2 of these in June. They're going to be for the Etsy shop that my mom and my sister and I have. But I'm finally sewing down the binding on it. And that is what I've been sewing, which is a lot, I feel like. It's a lot. Okay, so that is what I have been working on this past week. Next week, I want to finish the York top. I want to finish sewing that binding down. And then I've been in a quilting mood. Speaking of binding, I hand sew my binding down to the back, or I hand sew it down to whichever side. My baby really wants me. I would like to machine quilt all of the binding, but I need to practice more. But by the time I get to that point in a quilt, I'm like, I don't want to, I don't like how I keep ending up with like a flap that I don't really like. And I don't want to put in all this effort to a quilt. I've made the sandwich, I've quilted it, I've done all of this. I don't want to be unhappy with the binding, and I'm not willing, I guess, to risk not liking it and having to unpick all the binding. So Izzy had commented a while ago on one of my videos where I talked about hand sewing binding down, saying that she learned to machine bind her quilts pretty early because she said it was like a king size or something huge, which that would be a lot of hand sewing the binding down. And I was like, yeah, I just need to practice more. And I want to practice with one of her mug rugs. She does tutorials for mug rugs, like quarterly, seasonally. And she had one earlier this summer for a really cute mug rug that has like a rising sun on it. So I think I want to make that this week, next week. So specifically for the purpose of practicing the binding, because something that small, I'm not going to be like heartbroken if I don't like how the binding works. I can practice it multiple times. It's low risk to me. So I want to do that. And then I might get back to working on a rail fence quilt I was working on back in May that I had to put away because it was just annoying me. But I like I said, I really want to quilt right now. I want to just piece things. So I have that pulled out because I'm going to take it when we move. Where are the pieces for it? Here's a piece. So they're really small pieces, and I have a lot more to sew. So I think I'm going to pull this out and work on it for a while, and then if I need a break from it again, then I take a break from it again. But I might work on that a bit. We'll see. I want to keep cutting things. Really only have like 1 or 2 more garments I want to cut, but just a couple more things to have ready to go. I showed it in my sewing space tour. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects cut, 6 cut already. I have them on like a little shelf, and I have those all cut. I want more things for me though. I have a couple things for Brady, 1 thing for Adam, 1, 2 things for me. Okay, so I guess I do have a couple things. Anyway, maybe cut a couple more things just to have them, because then, even if I don't sew them while we're in the move, then when I get there, I already have stuff to sew, which is just really nice for future me to have. I think that's it for my plans next week. That's a good amount, especially if I work on that quilt. That can fill as many hours as I give to it, because there's a lot left to go and it takes time. So those are my plans. I really hope I like this York top. We'll see. In terms of life, one of the reasons, kind of the main reason I've been able to sew so much is that Brady's walking. She is full up, strolling across the house, walking, which is awesome. She had been to the point probably like a week and a half ago. She was at the point where we would still like count her steps. Like, oh, you hit 12. It's a new record. Now she's just, it like hit one day. She, like, as it does with kids, she was just like, I'm doing this now, just walking around. So that has been awesome because she is a total Velcro baby. For her whole first year of life, she had to either be touching us, specifically me, or within like a 3-foot radius, like very, very fussy, very angry if we weren't near her. And it's mostly because she wanted to be moved around. She wanted to be carried around. She wanted to look at different things. She just wants to see different things. And at that point, her body couldn't do it for her. With walking, she kind of just seems to want to walk. It's so cool. She'll be sitting here playing next to me and she'll stand up and walk out. I'm like, well, you got places to be, apparently. You know, I poke my head out and make sure she's not getting into something, but usually she's just going into the living room to play with a toy or whatever. So yeah, and especially with cutting, I can get away with cutting when she's awake and with me. I can't sew. If I turn on the sewing machine, she's like, what's that? And wants to come sit on my lap, which is not really conducive to sewing. But since right now I'm just trying to cut mostly and stuff like that, it's worked out well. You know, I chat to her about what I'm doing, or she chats to me about what she's doing, and she just has gained a whole new level of independence and now seems to feel comfortable being independent, which is so nice. It's a big growth, mental, social growth milestone that she will do things by herself now. So yeah, that is the big development in my life. I also started marathon training on Monday. I'm running a full marathon in December. I ran like 6 or 7 halves around college time frame. So not in a while. I've still run, but not distance like that. Half marathon's 13.1 miles and a full marathon is 26.2. Obviously half full, the math. So I ran a decent amount of halves, but I haven't run distance-y in a while. I've been running consistently since January again, and I'm up to like a couple weeks ago I ran 8 miles very comfortably. So I think I'm in a good position to start marathon training. I started on Monday with a rest day, so crushed that. And yeah, so I started marathon training. My marathon's at the beginning of December. I have plenty of time. That is my big personal thing that's happening. And yeah, we're just getting ready to move. Nothing really happening there. We're just waiting for them to come pack us out, which is nice, so we don't have to pack. So yeah, they're gonna come pack us out at the beginning of September, and then we are out of here. So that does it for this week's episode of Friday Sews. Thank you so much for joining me, as always. I don't know if I say it enough, but I really, really appreciate all of you that watch, that are subscribed, especially those that comment and really interact. It is so fun to know what you guys are sewing, what your opinions are on things and your input. Like, that's the big benefit of being part of this sewing community, is like we get to help each other out and talk about things, and I just love it. So let me know what you are working on in your sewing space. Let me know what you're working on in life, what's going on. It's fun to get like a little more complete picture of you guys, especially as people comment again and again. It's really nice to get to know you, even like via comments. It's really fun. So thank you so much. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed, I hope you consider subscribing and hanging around to not only see more videos from me, but to chat in the comments and get to know each other better. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye.